For 62 years, the official record said the Denver Broncos found Marion Hayes on their own in a walk-on tryout in 1963. But a scout named Otis Redmond made sure you'd never learn that he found Hayes first, wrote the report, and got erased before the ink dried. That's the story they tell. It isn't what happened. Otis Redmond wasn't on any staff photo. He wasn't in the media guide. For 62 years, his name didn't exist in Broncos history. Someone made sure of that. Here's what the records were rewritten to hide. In 1963, pro football was still segregated in every way that mattered, not by law, but by who got hired to find talent. Redmond worked as an independent scout, paid in cash, sent to small black colleges the big league teams wouldn't touch. He drove a borrowed Ford through Texas and Louisiana, watching games nobody wrote about. He found Marion Hayes at a junior college in Marshall, Texas, a receiver nobody had ranked, nobody had timed, nobody had filed a report on. Redmond clocked him at 9.6 in the 100. He wrote it down. He mailed it in. The official story says a Broncos assistant coach discovered Hayes at an open tryout 6 months later. That's the version in the archives. That's the version in the one book ever written about that Broncos draft class. But the timeline doesn't hold. Hayes signed with an agent in February. The discovery tryout wasn't until August. Something happened in between, and the paper trail that should explain it is missing pages. Not lost. Missing. Pulled. A team secretary who worked the front office that year, interviewed decades later for an oral history project that was never published, said it plainly. There was a scouting report filed under Redmond's name in January, and by March it was gone from the file. She remembered because she typed the folder label herself. You'd assume it was simple. Racism was ordinary then. Maybe Redmond just wasn't paid, wasn't credited the way it happened to dozens of black scouts across the league. That's the easy explanation. But it doesn't explain why someone went back into the files and removed the report instead of just leaving his name off the wall. Leaving him out is neglect. Pulling the paper is something else. Someone didn't want a record that could be checked later. Here's what the deeper paper trail shows. The Broncos front office in 1963 had a standing arrangement with 3 other AFL teams to split scouting costs on black colleges. An arrangement that was never supposed to be public, because it let ownership claim to the press and to an increasingly hostile league office that their rosters integrated naturally through open tryouts, not through a coordinated pipeline built on the unpaid labor of scouts like Redmond. If Redmond's name stayed on Hayes' file, the whole cover story collapsed. So a GM's assistant, his name is on the memo authorizing the file purge, dated March 9, 1963, ordered the report reassigned, not deleted outright. Reassigned? Redmond's findings credited to a staff scout who never left Denver that spring. That's not an accident of history. That's a paper trail engineered to survive an audit, and it worked for 62 years. Redmond scouted for 9 more seasons, uncredited, underpaid, and never hired full-time by a single AFL or NFL franchise, even as 3 of his discoveries made Pro Bowls under other men's names. He died in 1988. His obituary, 4 sentences long, didn't mention football at all. Marion Hayes knew. Teammates say he tried twice to get Redmond's name added to the team's history page in the 1990s. Both times the request went nowhere. Nobody in the front office by then even knew who Otis Redmond was, which was, in a strange way, the whole plan working exactly as designed. Erase the paper long enough, and eventually there's no one left who remembers what to look for. This isn't really a story about one scout. It's about how a league's official narrative, the one repeated in documentaries, in Hall of Fame speeches, in the tidy story of gradual integration, was assembled in part by removing the people who did the actual work. It cost Redmond a career. It cost the record any honesty about how it was built. And it cost you 62 years of not knowing his name. The memo authorizing the file purge surfaced only because a family cleaning out a storage unit in 2019 found it mixed in with unrelated real estate paperwork. Nobody's explained how it got there. Nobody's explained who else's reports may have been pulled the same spring, from the same file room, by the same hand. So the question isn't whether Otis Redmond existed. The question is how many others like him never had a memo left behind to prove it.